Welcome food fans, picky eaters, the flavor curious, and everyone in between. Nothing makes good food better than good conversation. And your table is ready. Come right this way to the Food for Thoughtcast with your host, Melissa Reagan. But you can call her Chef. All right, let's get this episode started.
Hey there, food fans. It's me, your host, Melissa Reagan. Welcome back to the Food for Thoughtcast. Today's guest is Stephen Gonzalez. He's joining us to recap his trip to St. Louis and Kansas City. Thank you for joining us for this Bbq A. Hey, Steve, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. What was the most amazing thing you ate this week?
Barbecue.
Barbecue. What kind of barbecue?
I went on a trip to Kansas City and St. Louis, and my cousin Isaac and I had a blast. We ate and ate and ate, and there was a lot of shenanigans in between.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Like you do. Yep. As a chef, when I travel, it's not about what I'm going to see or where I'm going to go. It's when are we going to eat and what is it?
Yes, exactly. Have you ever been on a trip where you plan every single meal out and you have to tell yourself, okay, we're going to share one thing. We're going to find something that just is awesome on the menu and we're going to order one thing. You have to fight every urge to order a second thing because you have to go to different places. Have you ever done that before?
Yes. So a crawl type situation, and then you have like 6 places on your list, but by the third place you're really full, but you just fight it.
Basically, yes.
Basically,
I broke that rule every time. We got 2 things at every restaurant. It's we want to go to 10 spots, and then halfway into the 4th one, you're like, oh my God, how am I going to do this?
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how you can flip the switch from not full to back to full to not full in search of the next best thing, with that next hit of endorphins, and you're like, I'm not that full. I can eat that.
The trick is you have to drink something that's gonna settle your stomach just a little bit.
Yes,
it's a daiquiri, a shot, maybe not a beer.
None of those things sound like they would settle my stomach. But I definitely always have a Coke if I'm super duper full.
Yeah. I've never done that in my life. It's oh yeah, we're gonna eat. And every restaurant I'm ordering as much as I possibly can. By after the first restaurant, I'm done. But this time I stuck to my guns, sort of.
All right. So what was the most amazing thing? You said it was barbecue, right? So what was it?
Okay, out of all the restaurants we went to in a span of 48 hours, Joe's Barbecue in Kansas City, I think, was probably the best. The way that they smoked their brisket, the flavor was out of this world. Everyone had really good brisket. This one just stuck out a little bit more to me because, when you smoke a brisket, you season it, you get into that middle piece, and it's almost like I need to add a little more salt to it. Yes. I don't know if it's because we're Texans, we throw a ton of salt in our barbecue. This particular one screamed perfection. And it was in a gas station, which, I'm sure if you watch the Food Network, you've seen it before. This place is legit, and I highly recommend it.
How did that brisket compare to a Texas brisket? Just the seasoning, or what else made it different?
The seasoning was a big part of it, but also the woods. You can definitely tell that it was a different type of wood that was used because you get that good smoky flavor. And for me, I'm all about like mesquite. Now, I know some people are like, oh, no, you got to use oak, you got to use hickory. like I'm just like ride or die with mesquite wood, and just the flavor of the smoke itself stood out, and that's how it kind of differentiated from like Texas barbecue, you know. But I mean, if you put Texas barbecue and that specific one side by side, you'd be like, holy cow, like I'm having a hard time trying to pick my favorite. This is amazing.
All right. So when you eat brisket, do you want the flat? Do you want the point? Do you want a piece with both, or do you want like deckle or burnt ends? Like, what are you doing?
You know, I'm not much of a burnt ends person. Like I've gotten into it to where I can appreciate it. I'm always so here's the weird part. They don't ask you if you want lean or moist. I'm so used to being asked that here in Texas that not being asked that it's kind of foreign to me. And you say, hey, I want brisket, and they give you brisket. Like they give you whatever you're at their mercy. And
Wow.
regardless, it's good, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I have very specific orders depending on where I go for the brisket.
Okay, so let me ask you, turkey. Do you ever order turkey, or are you all brisket? Or
No,
ribs?
definitely I order turkey, but if I had a preference, it's going to be chicken. It's going to be smoked chicken before turkey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then ribs, it depends. Like we have a local place here, Pecan Lodge, super famous. I like their beef ribs. They don't have them all the time, but it's definitely a destination for that. And then if I have my choice between like pork ribs and brisket, I'm going to lean more toward pulled pork, honestly. It's kind of my go-to.
I'm the opposite. I go more towards like the pork ribs than the pulled pork, but I can definitely appreciate a good pulled pork. I judge a place on their brisket, but I also judge it on their turkey as well, because if they can get a good flavor on it and it's juicy.
Yeah, it's still moist and not like a leather boot.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that's a real turnoff for me for smoked, white meat in general. It's just like, it's usually crap.
Okay, so Joe's, they blew my mind with everything. The ribs were awesome. So I'll start with the ribs. Like what stuck out to me, and I got to look at the picture of it so that way I can like I can jot my memory, because talking about it's one thing, but like when you see the picture of, oh yeah, that's why I loved it so much, it makes it so much better. So their pork ribs, they were sticky to where it wasn't overwhelming. Like you get a little bit of a crust on it. You get that sweetness from the brown sugar. You get like some of that paprika kind of flavor to it. Sure. And then of course you get that great smoke. And with the rib, you want it to be, not fall off the bone, but if you pull just enough on it, it comes off the bone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're not making pulled pork, right? Like you're not shredding it up, and it needs to hold its shape so that you can eat it.
Yeah, exactly. And so we just got brisket, the ribs, which were out of this world. Their smoked turkey was on point. It was tender. It was juicy. They put just a little bit of sauce on it, which it didn't need it, but it just made it that much better. And their pulled pork, oh my gosh. Like it was just, because you asked me what was the best thing I ate this week, that's what the best thing I ate this week was. And we didn't even get any sides. We just got like pickles. Actually, I'm lying to you. We got some of their onion rings. I think that was about it.
Onion rings. Tell me about those.
Oh, dude. So I don't know about you, but I'm very rarely do you find a place with like good meat and good sides. You never find like it's one or the other. You know what I'm saying?
It's usually one or the other for sure.
Yeah. And so there was a handful of spots that their sides were way better. And then there was a couple of spots where the meat, just spoke for itself.
Sure.
So, yeah. I almost feel bad like saying names, but everywhere we ate was just delicious. But that's everyone had their own redeeming qualities. You know what I'm saying? Or not redeeming qualities. We all had their good qualities. Let me rephrase that.
Yeah, so everywhere had its like winners, right? Like everywhere had something worth getting.
Oh yeah.
In other words,
worth mentioning.
Was it your first time having Kansas City style barbecue?
Yes, it was. And I will say that something tells me I'm not in Texas anymore. I know that's not how the saying goes, but
it is now.
Yeah. You know what's weird though is the way that they do their barbecue is they slice it so thin that it's almost paper thin and it doesn't fall apart. It doesn't turn to mush. It's been in my experience with Texas barbecue, it's sliced just enough to where it won't fall apart. You know what I'm saying? Like Kansas City barbecue, even St. Louis barbecue, like they both sliced them very thin. Like their brisket was sliced so thin to where it was like
Right.
almost paper thin, and it was, it was just fall melt in your mouth tender.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in Texas, you're definitely getting brisket. It's sliced just a little bit thicker. And when you're slicing it that thin, like how you're talking about, then usually the next step is to chop it to put on a sandwich,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So what did you think of the sauce, like compared to what you're used to here?
it's a lot sweeter than what I'm used to. So if you really think about it, like Texas barbecue sauce is spicy. It's almost like ketchup based, but you get a lot of spice out of it, like
Right.
heat, not just, like spice, like a coriander spice, for example, but you get like a lot of heat spice out of it as well. With
Right.
Kansas City, it's a lot sweeter. And even like their spicy sauces are still sweet as well. And I won't knock on it, but a little part of me, again, being from Texas, I'm just like, I need a little more salt on this. This is really good. I can eat like a few spoonfuls of this, but after a while, I'm going to want some salt.
Well, that's because everything's bigger in Texas, including the flavor, apparently.
Well, those are fighting words. You're on your own there. Bye, everyone. It was very nice talking to you, Melissa.
Like Steve had a great time today on the podcast again, and he's out. Well, I'm a little bit of a traitor to Texas barbecue myself because I want the style where we cook the pulled pork, hickory or pecan with like a lot of bark, but I want the Carolina barbecue sauce because I'm an acid fanatic.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes total sense.
I don't want I want ketchup for my French fries. I don't want it on my barbecue. Like, I just don't like it.
So it's funny you say that. So so my cousin and I, he lives in Kansas City. We drove up there. The following day we drove to St. Louis, and I met up with an old friend of mine who used to play bass for heavy metal bands, and he's toured all over the planet and stuff like that. And now he lives in St. Louis. He's a bartender. So him and I go way back. I think I was like 22, 23 when I met him. And, fast forward like almost 15 years later, he lives there and he knows all the good spots in St. Louis. So he was like, oh, yeah, you got to go check out this place and this place and this place. And so we went to this place called Pappy's. And they had a Carolina style barbecue sauce. It was more vinegar than anything else. And it was just so loose. But like it complemented the good. They had a good smoke on their meat, and their ribs, they were kind of sticky as well. Their brisket beans, it was amazing because like they're a little bit on the sweeter side. Again, I prefer a little more salt personally, but like their potato salad, their was awesome. Their slaw was very vinegar based. And so you get that sweetness with that vinegar-based barbecue sauce. Oh, my God. It was so good. And the weird thing was, for me, because, being from Texas, everyone steals stuff. So, like, they have all their smokers right outside up against the street. And it's almost like, shouldn't these be, like, fenced in?
That's crazy. Why aren't those chained up, right? Like, oh, my goodness. You would never see that.
Up. It's just like how do they prevent people from stealing like their meat? Like that, at least from an outsider looking in. But man, like their barbecue was on point. It was so good. And then we went. Let's see. We also went to this place called Beast Butcher Block Barbecue. Okay. Now with their barbecue, like they smoke everything just like everyone else, and so. We got this thing called a snoot, which is kind of like the cheeks where it's like kind of sliced up and it's deep fried and it's like tossed in a bunch of sauce. And
that sounds stupid good.
Oh, dude, I'm a big fan of all that kind of stuff. And it was, again, they love their sauce out there, like they just love their sauce. And the first bite that you get, you're like, okay, I get a lot of sauce. And then once like those flavors mellow, you get a little bit of that pork flavor, that like that fried pork, that texture, that crunch. My God.
Right. Well, especially when you're dealing with anything that's like cartilage. Like I love a good like brined and deep fried pigtail. You
Okay,
kind of
yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
some of the qualities that like a chicken foot has, but I don't eat those. But you get some of that like really nice, it's somewhere between gelatinous and like a pork rind type
Yeah.
feel. So you get all the different textures without being overly, I don't know, kind of gross, like it's
Yeah.
definitely doable. Like I think it's definitely approachable. But my thing about sauce is you said, when you taste it, the first thing you thought was like, that's a lot of sauce. I don't mind sauce. It just can't be a cover up or a substitute for poor cooking. That's all.
Well, see, that's true. So the way that they sent it out, it was like on a nice piece of bread. I don't know what kind it was, but they also sent out like pickles and pickled onions. So like I'm not a big pickle person. I can do like pickled onions and pickled okra. I don't do dill pickles. I'm not a big dill person, but I'm like slowly eating those words because I'm starting to like it. And you put a little bit of that bright acid with that sweet, that very fatty fried piece
Sure.
of pork. Damn, it was good.
You have to have something to cut all that richness because it's a lot. It's a lot of fat. It's a lot of meat. There's a lot of umami going on, and you have to have something to cut through the middle of it, which is why I don't personally prefer sweet barbecue sauce because it doesn't do it for me. It doesn't cut the richness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
But to each their own. Like I totally understand why people like it. Like I like molasses on biscuits. I don't want it on my brisket. You know what I mean? Like it's just something about acid. I really feel like it just it hits that other quadrant for me and makes it like a well-rounded flavor experience.
Mm-hmm. So like again, I'm breaking my rules of like you're gonna order one thing. You have a couple beers, and they have let's see, it's called Civil Life Brewery. Their cream ale was on point. It was delicious. We had a brown ale as well. It was a little too nutty for my liking, but I liked it. So, anyways, going back to breaking my rules, we ordered ribs and we ordered brisket. Now, with them, they gave a little bit of both, like where it was like the lean, but it was also that fatty. And so you're like, I'm going to eat this and I'm going to enjoy it. Not only because I'm paying for it, but because this is, you don't get this every day. And so we also ordered their pimento grits oh my God, that was so good. And then my cousin
pimento cheese grits, to clarify.
Dude, anytime you can get creamy grits to me.
But pimento cheese, that's what you said?
Yeah, pimento cheese, yeah.
Oh, that sounds so good. Were they spicy at all?
No, not at all. It was very savory, very creamy, oh yeah. Those just knocked your socks off, right? And then of course, to kind of get that a little more salt out of it, because I've been crying, I need salt. we got some cotija fries, and those were delicious too. So like everything just balanced out. The pickled onions, the beer, the sweetness of your ribs, your good smoke on your brisket. Oh my God, everything was just so good. And so it was one of those things where we told each other, okay, where are we going next? We're getting kind of full. And this is where we talked about, like, we got to have a daiquiri, like we're in the arts district. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
And so we got a daiquiri, like you get that nice bright pink lemonade daiquiri, and you're playing tic-tac-toe, just enjoying your time. You settle your stomach just a little bit. And then we went to this place called Soul Taco. Now, we don't have that here in Texas. It's exactly what it sounds like, and it's like soul, like Korea soul, Seoul. And we had just an order of tacos. It was like Korean beef, Korean pork, Korean chicken. And then, of course, it's topped like a slaw and then chipotle mayo. And you have another beer. And it was really good. Like, it was a little, you got like all those flavors together. Now, of course, not barbecue, but you need something to change it up because you're like, I can't have too much barbecue because I'm going to get sick of this,
Right.
And it was very delicious. I think they have a few different locations, so I can't really say it's not a chain, but it's like a local chain, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, no, I totally get that.
The service was awesome. The food was really good. I would definitely go back. And it's crazy because apparently in St. Louis, the weather just changes on a dime, like, so it was nice and chilly and then it was raining out of nowhere. And, you can't beat be mad at me for this, but I've never had a Scotch egg before. I've heard about it.
Wow.
I've seen videos about them. And so we went to this place called Scotch Arms, which was another Philip recommendation. So we had a Scotch egg, and I didn't get a picture of that, but I remember eating it because I remember thinking, this is so good. And I got to hang out with the chef for a little bit towards the end. That dude was so cool. A lot of fun.
That sounds like an incredible day of eating. You're making me hungry right now.
Like at that point, you end up getting a little more full than you think, and you tell yourself, okay, I'm gonna have just a little bit more, and I'm gonna be fine. It was great catching up, and then we went back to Kansas City, and I had literally like 6 hours to eat as much barbecue as possible.
And you were like, challenge accepted. We're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you go from like Joe's Barbecue, which was out of this world. And then we went to this place called Q39, and they're known for their barbecue as well. Of course, everything that you go, like if it's a barbecue spot, like it's got to be really good, Their brisket had a beautiful smoke ring on it. We got an apple slaw, and then we got like these chicken wings, and I have never had chicken wings that fat in my life. Can you tell I'm very excited about it because like I don't talk this much, but
no, I like it.
These wings, they were baked, they were smoked, or vice versa, but then they were finished off on the grill. And again, they were the fattest wings I've ever had. And they had like a honey chipotle barbecue sauce and some let me see, just a little extra seasoning. But my God, like, that's like the second spot that you're supposed to be at. And you're like, okay, I need to slow this down. I need to slow down just a little bit. And it was funny because, it was myself, Isaac, and then his fiance there in St. Louis. And we're like going to all these spots and we're getting like one thing each. And so you see the servers like, that's all you're getting? Like between the three of you? Huh.
We're like, yes, we're pacing ourselves. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
It's so strange, but then you have to explain. I'm on a food tour. I got to go back to Texas here in a few hours. I want to get as much food in as possible, And so once you explain it like that, then people look at you like, okay, that makes sense. So that's what we did. But those wings, oh my God, they were juicy. Like you just bite into them and it's like all this juice and flavor just like pop into your mouth, And the barbecue, the brisket, like it was sliced real thin, not like paper thin, but like you have to cut it with a fork, and you get like that beautiful smoke ring, that seasoning, that smoke,
right?
And we got like an apple slaw with that, and it was almost like a combination of like very creamy and a little bit acid as well.
So yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, was it mayonnaise based or vinegar based? The sauce?
It was a combination of both. It was different, but I highly enjoyed it. Like,
so sweet in the sauce or just the sweetness from the apples? Sorry, I have questions. I don't mean to keep interrupting you.
No, by all means, that's what we do.
Was it like a sweet, like a creamy cold? You said it was somewhere between creamy and vinegary, but then my next question is, was there sweetness? And if there was sweetness, was it predominantly from the apples, or was it like we add sugar to ours?
No, it was from the apples. Like you don't get like sugar, like you get like that sweetness from like fruit,
a natural sugar,
tart fruit. Like it's like the apples they used were a little bit tart, but they were also a little bit sweet. So not quite like a Granny Smith, but something along those lines.
I get you.
Yeah, and so we asked the server there because what do you do when you're on vacation and you're eating at a place? Where do you like to go? So the guy said you got to go check out Slaps Barbecue. Okay. And apparently they're world champions. And awesome. You pull up to the spot and you see a line outside and you think to yourself, okay, let's see what this is all about. Now, I think we waited about like 30 minutes or something like that, and there's a reason why apparently they're world champions. Like their brisket was so good.
Absolutely.
And this is where it goes to like their burnt ends. So I'm judging everyone by their brisket because, of course, you think barbecue, you think brisket, you think pork ribs.
Of course.
And, like it's like, well, let's try everyone's brisket. Why not? And so the burnt ends were a little on the sweet side for me, but that smoke, that seasoning, everything just complemented very well. And it almost like melted like butter in your mouth. You know what I'm saying? Like I've
Right.
never had that before. And I thought, aren't these supposed to have like a little bit of a crisp to them? I don't know. What do
Yeah.
you think of when you think of burnt ends?
For me, I think it needs to be equal parts tender and bark. I
I
mean,
can see
the
that,
word
yeah.
burnt is in the name, so you've got to have like a little bit of a texture dynamic there. I've
Yeah.
definitely had both ends of the spectrum. I've had where it was like, there's really no texture to this. It's just falling apart. And then all the way to like, this is worse than a chicharron, and now my jaw hurts from trying to chew this. Like tough, right?
This was a nice balance, of both of those. Again, for me, a little more salt, but then you have like their barbecue sauce, and it just like totally complemented everything.
Yeah.
So this place, I'm also going to give them kudos, 2 thumbs up for their sides as well, because we got like their cheesy corn, which apparently that's a not St. Louis, that's a Kansas City thing. Like people get cheesy corn as a side for their barbecue. And
Right.
that stuff, oh my God, it was perfect. Like everything about it was just perfect.
Okay.
And
So when you say cheesy corn, is that like cream corn with cheese, or explain?
well, I would imagine it is, yeah, because like I'm looking at the picture right now, like again to jog my memory. And so like it's very cream based, but like you can tell they melted a lot of cheese in there, and they've got their corn, and it's like a perfect blend of like salty. It's a perfect blend of a little sweetness, and then you get that little bit of the texture from the corn,
Nice.
and you get just a little bit of spice out of it, like, and I just really loved it. But then they had their I guess they call it their baked potato casserole.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
Holy cow. That stuff was amazing. Like that just really made me stop and say, wow. Like, I mean, everything was good, but that baked potato casserole, like those sides were just wow. Like it just really brought out everything from their brisket and the burnt ends. Like I could just have a huge bowl of like either cheese, corn, and brisket on top, or the
Right.
baked potato casserole and brisket on top, and I would be I'd be happier than a pig in mud.
I really feel like the smaller, not a chain places, like places that aren't like, Soul Man's and Dickie's, like local spots like around here, I feel like they can get away with so much in their side items. They have the ability and the bandwidth to offer really unique and fun things depending on the locale. There's a little place here I love that's they're not local, like it's Lockhart from Lockhart, right? But they have a couple of locations here, and their blue cheese slaw is ridiculous. It's
Did you say
so
blue
good.
cheese slaw?
Yes, it's so good.
Oh, that sounds so good.
I know. And you have that smoky, savory with the chicken, and their smoked chicken has like crispy skin on it, and then it's mellowed out with a cold cabbage and like that sharp, tangy blue cheese. And
Oh
what
my
time is it? I
God.
kind of want to go get it right now. All right, so
Right? You might have missed your time. Everything closes early on Sundays.
right, for sure. Well, I was going to tell you, if you're ever around Austin, there's a little bit of maybe a soul taco fill at a place called Cilantro. They have Korean esquites, and they have like Korean barbecue type burritos, and they do like kimchi fries. There's a lot of crossover there, and it's really tasty. Super
Nice.
tasty.
I thought you were going to talk about like going to Franklin Barbecue. I was about to say, yes, I know they're delicious. You don't have to tell me because I've eaten there and I love them too.
Yeah, it's stupid good. I've waited in line for hours and hours and hours. It's so good.
Yeah, and the owner's awesome.
Shout out to Aaron Franklin.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah, Aaron's a lovely guy. I only met him once in my life, and I was like, oh, you're so cool.
We'll be right back. As a chef and a person who loves all kinds of food, I'm always looking for ways that can emphasize quality over quantity without feeling like I'm missing out or depriving myself of the things that I love. And I love pasta. Carbonara, mac and cheese, primavera, cacio e pepe, you name it, and I'm all about it. That's why I choose Panza. Bonza is the pasta made from chickpeas, which means it has more protein, more fiber, and I believe more flavor than regular old pasta. Seriously, if you go in my pantry right now, there are 2 boxes in there awaiting their next culinary adventure. Bonza has over 12 different kinds of pasta, including penne, rotini, elbows, and cavatappi, which is my favorite, because all of those curves and ridges hold even more delicious sauce. Bonza also makes pizza crust, which tastes too good to believe that it comes from peas. You can find Bonza at Whole Foods, Target, and Walmart. Ray Shimalecki, the host of Spoon Mob podcast, will be with us next week. We discuss the food scene in Columbus, Ohio, and talk about the industry.
Welcome to Spoon Mob. It's the place to find great chef interviews, interviews with sommeliers, course breakdowns, restaurant experience recaps, food and travel news, and a whole lot of stuff in between. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Spoon Mob. Visit the website spoonmob.com. And don't forget to check out the podcast. We're available on all major podcast platforms. So give us a listen, give us a follow. Welcome to Spoon Mob.
Now let's get back to the show.
So I got back on a Saturday night, and then Sunday, everything's pretty much closed. So today I kind of missed my opportunity. Oh, yeah, today's Monday. I keep thinking it's Sunday.
That's okay. I wasn't going to correct you.
Squirrel. Squirrel.
We'll edit it out.
Right. So it made me really miss like Texas barbecue. And so I was going to go to my friend's barbecue restaurant. Well, it's like a restaurant, and he does barbecue, but he also has like a bunch of very awesome, unique things. And they sold out by like 1 o'clock. And I was like, I had my shot and I blew it, you know? So I'm going to have to hit him up sometime this week for,
it's simultaneous, like the best and the worst, right? Like first it's your buddy, so you're cheering him on. Second, you're like, I missed out. But third, you know, it's good because it continuously sells out.
Yeah, and
I think it took me
like
6 months.
Be like, bro, do you have anything left over for me at all? You know, you don't want to do that because then you don't want to be like that guy, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, sometimes you got to be that guy. Like sometimes the situation calls for that. But I mean, I think it took me 6 months before I was able to try anything at Franklin's because I waited in line probably, gosh, I don't know, maybe twice a month for 3 or 4 months in a row, and it didn't have anything left. And I got there as early as I could, but it was like I was working a full-time job too. I just couldn't do it.
I think
it was almost like waiting in line was a part-time job.
Yeah, I think we took off at like 6 o'clock and got there at 7 because I lived in San Antonio at the time. I think we were there at 7 or we were there 6:30. We were there ungodly early after, you know, working till like about 10:30, 11 o'clock, and then partying till about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, you know, so that way you can wake up to go, you know, eat there. And I mean, we were like the 5th or 6th, you know, we were in the top 10 people, like from the door, the first 10, let me rephrase that, not top 10. And yeah, we ate there. The food was awesome. It blew my mind. And, you know, we got to meet Aaron and he was cool, you know? And
yeah, his food's amazing, but his story is amazing too.
Oh yeah. And you know, don't get me wrong, like I'm not gonna trash talk, you know, like some of the chains like Rudy's or Dickie's or anything like that. Cause I think they do a good job in their own right. They give, you know, like good flavors, they're consistent, and they have people who are constantly QC and stuff. Even I'm a shout out to HEB. I gotta say their barbecue is on point too, and I don't say that because I work good. I say that because as a culinarian, as a foodie, as someone who loves food, they do it right, and so that's why I say like you can't knock on a chain because they do it right too. You know,
HEB does. HEB does so many things right. HEB does so many things right, and they're amazing. And this is my plea that I'm putting out into the universe. Please come to Dallas proper. If I have to drive 30 miles to you, it's not in Dallas.
It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time.
I know it's coming, but not fast enough.
They are Texas, and and I'm not even getting paid to say this right now. You know, I'm just saying this as a Texan. You know, even if I didn't work for HEB, I'd be like, oh yeah, HEB's Texas, and everything about them is wonderful. Yeah, you know,
absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't know about you, but I follow like the Texas Monthly magazine.
Yes, same.
And they had like the top, I don't know, 50 brands in Texas or something like that. And the top two are HEB and Bluebell. And you would not believe how many people were like, are you serious? Is this even a question? HEB, duh. You know?
Yeah. Yep.
Bluebell's cool, but have you had HEB Creamy Creations? There's no contest. None.
It's a whole other episode, but I have like a very strong set of beliefs about ice cream. But we digress.
Oh, I've got some grief for that one.
Yeah. Well, we digress. Let's talk about barbecues. So obviously you got to sample tons of Kansas City, a little bit of St. Louis, and we're both from Texas. So as far as Texas barbecue, like what did you grow up with?
So for me, barbecue was like not grilling, but yeah, it was like the brisket, the ribs. And I didn't really know any better. So like a pet peeve of mine is when people say we're barbecuing and they make like burgers. It's like, that's not barbecue.
That's like, cooking out.
You're grill. Yeah, exactly.
That's
you're
grilling.
And that's what I grew up with. Like that, those two, it was a direct correlation for so many years because I didn't really know that there was an art to actual barbecue. And I mean, we made the briskets. There was a lot of ribs, but it was like the sliced ribs where it's like, where they're just like sliced real thin and whatnot. And riblets, I guess you can say. Yeah.
Yes.
And so like, for me, that's what I thought barbecue was until like, I actually realized that's not it at all, And once I started understanding it, it was like, how do you smoke a brisket? How do you properly smoke a chicken to where it's flavorful, it's juicy, and you still get that crispy skin?
There's nothing I hate more than rubbery skin on smoked chicken. It is the biggest turnoff.
Right. Well, and I know that there's ways around that to kind of get it crisp at the end. But, I'm not an expert at it. Like even with ribs, like you always got to remove that skin, right inside, that silver skin, to make sure that your ribs are perfect. So when my friend was touring in San Antonio with his band, I told him, hey, man, I'm going to drive to San Antonio. I'm going to cook for you all. We're going to hang out. And he goes, yeah, for sure. And at the time he was playing with the mirror, and it was like Fit for an Autopsy, After the Burial. If I'm a huge metalhead, so I like all those bands. And so it was funny because my father-in-law and we smoked ribs, for about 4 hours. I made sides. I made all sorts of stuff. I don't even remember what I made other than ribs and like barbecue sauce. And so I got to the venue, and of course, it was funny because I just found out that night they told him there's no VIPs, like there's no guest list. He goes, no, there's a guest list. And they kept saying, there's no guest list. He said, you don't understand. My friend Stephen Gonzalez has to be on the guest list because he's cooking for us. And they go, oh yeah, him and a +1, and that was like the best feeling ever,
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love cooking for like bands and stuff and just hanging out and shooting the breeze with them. And that's where I met like the members or the singer from Fit for an Autopsy. So there was this one time where they came into town, and I told them, hey man, if you're coming to Odessa, I'll cook for you, we'll have a good old time. And nice. Sure enough, it was like, it's just like one of those things that, again, I love to do. And so like, you just learn, like you have friends who are very passionate about it, and they just kind of tell you like their secrets, and you pick it up and you're like, oh yeah, I don't want them to make fun of me. So I'm going to apply what they taught me,
I feel like regional cuisine is very similar to music in a lot of ways. The best way you're going to learn is to hang out with other people who know how to do it. And then you keep building on your skills from there. Right.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. I mean, obviously there's different types of barbecue, KC, Carolina, Memphis, Texas. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a difference in Texas barbecue where it's like Dallas versus San Antonio versus like Houston? Do you think there's a difference there or no?
Yes. 100%. Yes.
Tell me.
So in my experience, so you said Houston, San Antonio, but I think even Austin is like a huge player in that. Right. And so I personally, this is just my experience. So people out there, please don't come for me. Maybe I need to eat at more places, but whatever. Right. I think that Dallas and Austin are definitely more in that dry rub and oak and pecan style. and
Okay.
all the bark and the smoke ring. Whereas I think Houston and San Antonio have bigger ethnic tradition like influences. So you're going to see more things like chipotles and cumin and dried chilies, and more steering toward things like carne asada, but like those kind of flavor profiles.
Yeah.
And you're going to see like more hickory and mesquite in those areas. And that's just been my personal experience.
I will say though, like touching on like the spices and stuff like that, like I love the chipotle. Like if you grind up chipotle peppers or dried chipotle and you get like that in your rub, that's always amazing. I love coffee with that as well. The one flavor that will turn me off from like your establishment is if you put cumin in your barbecue rub. I can't do it. I cannot do it. In San Antonio, there was a point where it felt like they put a lot of it in everything, and I just didn't care for it. I could do a pinch here and there, but
right. Well, that's one of the hallmarks of. So Texas barbecue doesn't traditionally use a mop. The
Correct.
mop being the mixture that we're mopping or basting onto the meat while we're cooking. But when we do, some places will use like cumin or Worcestershire or meat drippings. Like they're treating it like a turkey baste, right? So they take the drippings out of the bottom, and kind of back onto the meat, or things like hot sauce. And then you're going to see cumin come up in other ways, like perhaps in beans. But then again, I feel like regionally in Texas, the beans are going to be completely different as well. Yeah. I feel like the further south you go, the more spicy they are, and maybe the more meat that they have in them.
I don't feel that way. Like, not necessarily that they're spicy. I've seen a lot of like you cook with beer. The further south you go, you do get like a lot of cilantro and a little spice. But
yeah. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said spicy. I should have said like spiced, like more heavily seasoned. So I just feel like if you're kind of north of Waco, you're getting more sweet beans, if that makes sense.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because for me, every aspect or every component of your meal, if you're barbecuing, whether it's a protein, couple sides, like everything has to be on point. So you almost want everything to complement each other, but at the same time, like if you're going to have that by itself, it better be damn good. If your potato salad if you're just going to have a big bowl of potato salad, it better be good by itself. Beans, the same thing. I've even seen like, San Antonio and further south by the border, like where I'm from, if you're having all that, you're having rice too. And that rice is just got to be on point.
Absolutely. Everything should be able to stand on its own. So when we're talking about Texas barbecue, I mean, I think brisket is definitely king. And typically it's a dry rub. We use a lot of dry mustard, chili powder, not as much sugar. I mean, that's really going to be the difference between like Texas and Kansas City. Whereas, Memphis, you've got some different flavors in there, right? Like you're bringing in possibly dried ginger, dried rosemary. There's going to be chili powder and paprika there.
Now let me ask you: is it Carolina or is it Memphis that they use like apple juice like for part of their sop?
So that's Carolina.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. So in South Carolina, you've got the mustard base, like the Carolina Gold style sauce, and then Eastern North Carolina and Western North Carolina, those are where you're going to find the differences. One's going to be ketchup and vinegar based, and one's going to be vinegar based, but both like featuring apple cider for sure.
Yeah.
Or apple cider vinegar, which that's my personal favorite. I like a thin, vinegary, and mustardy sauce.
Because I've seen Food Network where some people use like apple juice, and then I've seen it where they use apple cider vinegar. And they both sound really good in their own right. Like I'm not going to dog on it. I would love to try it. So I guess I got to make more trips out,
Right. I mean, it's just an excuse to travel and eat more. There's nothing wrong with that. Right. I think pork, lends itself to fruit though. I mean, I think hands down, apples, peaches, mangoes, like all that stuff, apricots, like it really lends itself to that because of the flavor. And it can really, pork is heartier than chicken. I feel like it can stand up to those type of things without disappearing.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
you know. I read an interesting article the other day, though. I was kind of looking at the different types of barbecue just in anticipation of our conversation today, and I learned something new. Apparently in Memphis since the 1970s, a regional staple has been barbecue spaghetti, which is spaghetti noodles tossed in half marinara, half barbecue sauce, loaded up with pulled pork, peppers, and onions. Have you ever heard of this?
This is a foreign topic to me.
I know. It sounds, I would eat it.
I would try it. I would definitely get the kids version, the kids portion, to see if I like it,
Right.
And it's funny you say that because my wife and I are planning on going to Memphis in May for some sort of music festival. So we'll see what happens. If we end up going, then we'll definitely give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, you absolutely have to keep track of everything you ate and then let us know what happens. For sure.
Oh, yeah. The pressure, right?
No,
remember everything
pressure.
that you made. That's what pictures are for.
All your cuisine must be curated from now on so that you can come onto the Food for Thoughtcast and tell us about your travels.
Oh, no. Today I traveled downstairs to my kitchen and we decided to, so much pressure. I don't think I can do this anymore.
So much pressure. No pressure. No pressure.
Right?
No pressure. It's easy around here. Everything can be food for thought, for sure.
I know. Have you really thought about everything has a story and you try to think about it and you try to, every ingredient you think about, okay, what can I put this with? What can I do that's unusual? And everything's already been done. You think of things that no one's ever done and it's been done a million times already,
Yeah, sure. But there's always a tweak you can do to make it your own, I think.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it'll only have been done 10 times instead of 1,000,
Yeah, sure.
But still.
Hey, but nobody can do it the way that you do it, right? Nobody's going to cook it with the love that you put into it.
So, okay.
Make
so since we're talking barbecue, pork ribs, again, you said they take on a lot of flavors. You can put fruit and stuff like that with them. What's your favorite rib? Is it St. Louis style? Is it a baby back? Is it a spare rib? What do you like?
So it depends on the application, but if we're talking about straight barbecue, I want baby back ribs.
Why?
Because that's what I like. You asked.
No, I just want to know why. I'm very much in agreement with you. Baby backs are really good. St. Louis are awesome. I mean, they're all really good in their own right. But I'm the spare ribs. The only issue I have is that you still have some of that cartilage on the bottom, and you can chomp through it, which is fine if you cook it right, But then sometimes you're just picking through your mouth, trying to get that piece out. But yeah, I'm a big fan of that as well.
I mean, definitely
So I don't know. I always like to do a little bit of the brown sugar, and I don't know about you. I love curry powder on my ribs.
So curry is not something that I have done in barbecue. I love all kinds of curries: red, yellow, green, Thai, Indian, whatever it is. Right? Love that stuff. I've never ever featured that in a rub for barbecue, but now I feel like I have to try it.
It's not necessarily for me. It's not necessarily a barbecue rub because people are gonna tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. But I like to put that with so if I ever do let's just say I'm gonna do a barbecue rub, it's gonna be a little bit of brown sugar, your salt, white pepper. Let's see. So a little bit of paprika. Let's see. I'm gonna probably repeat a few ingredients a handful of times. Onion powder, garlic powder, then that little bit of curry with that.
Sure.
Holy cow, that's so good. Just a little bit. And then you pork and curry, those two flavors just complement each other very well, in my opinion.
I mean, I love everything in the flavor profile of a curry, so I don't see why not. When I'm making ribs at home, I use we're not going to call it a mop because I don't use it while I'm cooking, but it's a wet rub, if anything else. It's not submerged in a liquid, so you can't really call it a marinade, but I would call it a paste. And I will, it's very much kind of in the pastor style. I'm using pineapple
I can see that. Heck yeah.
Well, for the bromelain that's in the pineapple, so that enzyme, it's a natural meat tenderizer. So
Uh-huh.
it's a really good place to start, I feel. But lots of chili powder, cayenne, not too much sugar. I just use the sweetness from the pineapple. But like, yeah, chili powder, cayenne, a little bit of hot sauce, black pepper, white pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, kind of that direction. That's what I do.
Yeah. You know what I always think is good too? Like if you make a good sauce, you make it from scratch. So, like I'll do more like a beer-based barbecue sauce, stuff like that, and a lot of vinegars. And I'll start sopping it, if you will, like the last couple hours, and then like
Sure.
every 30 minutes, like another layer, another coat. And then what I love to do is I'll wrap them in foil, and I'll throw like a ton of butter with that, and then I'll just throw more sauce on, like just so that way everything just kind of goes to the bottom of that foil, and it just kind of like starts to steep it and kind of break down that muscle even more. So then by the time that you take your ribs out, and whether it's out of the butcher paper, foil, whatever the case is, I mean, they're just like fall apart tender. Some people might say that they're overdone, but who cares?
Yeah, I mean, there is that fine line. I think you definitely want to be able to cut them into ribs without destroying them. But it's also in the way that you treat them after you're done cooking them, right? Like just like anything else, you need to let it rest just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You can't pull it straight from the smoker and expect to tear it into a perfect rib, or even be able to cut it without, you have to be able to handle it first, right? And then if you just give it a few minutes, like it shouldn't be any big deal.
Have you ever done it where you cook your ribs, you let them cool off just enough to where you can work with them, and instead of cutting them into like ribs, like you try to like just take the bones out, and then you do like a rib sandwich?
Yes, I do that with
the McRib and all that.
Yeah, I do that with a beef, like a beef riblet, or like that short, kind of the short rib, but it's not actually the short rib. It's just that top, plate. It's those little, I can't think of a better word. It's just riblets, for lack of a better term, but it's like the last 5 ribs on that plate. And yeah, I will do that. I'll stand them up on aluminum foil to slow roast. And then I don't have a smoker at my house, full confession, but I have used them in the business, I promise. But yeah, I don't have a smoker at home, but like, yeah, I will stand them up on foil, kind of like you would like a crown roast, right? And I will carefully pull the bones, and you just have to make that cut like in the silver skin first, for that little bitty slit before you get started. But yeah, it's fantastic.
I love to do like the beef ribs and all that stuff. And once I'm done cooking them, I like to put them like, I like to surround them with like a bread and like your fillings and stuff. And then you just pull that bone clean out. Yeah. Have you ever done that?
Yes.
Oh, my God. That's what you were basically talking about, right?
It's like the old brontosaurus sandwich, like in the song of the Flintstones.
Yeah. I mean, my chest is killing me by the time I'm done eating, and my stomach is so full and I just want to go to sleep. But my God, it's so worth it while you're doing that.
I think there's some sort of nap index for like really good meals, like on a level of 1 to 5. Do you need a nap now, or could you wait an hour?
I'm always okay. So it's weird to say, but I'm a little intimidated by the dino ribs, by the beef dino ribs. And I only say that because they're so thick and hearty. Like it's just so much food that I feel like by the time I'm done eating just one, I'm going to feel so lethargic and so sleepy and, like after just like even half of one, like I want to eat it, but at the same time, I know what's going to happen if I do eat it.
Yeah.
And I go through with it and then I go to sleep,
Yeah, absolutely. One night at Salt Lick down in Dripping Springs, right outside of Austin, like another famous Texas barbecue place. They had a beef rib special on Sunday nights, and I think they had 3 left, and I only got 1, and I got 2 sides, and I had to get some of their famous peach cobbler as well, and I just felt like somebody could have rolled me out of there. It was just ridiculous, but yeah. for what I paid for it, and this was several years ago, I mean, a beef rib's a hefty price. And for what I paid for it, I was like, I'm not wasting any of this. Like, I'm throwing down the gauntlet. Like, we're going to eat all this. That's it. No discussions, right? I'm eating this thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Salt Lake is good too. I forgot all about that place until you mentioned it. Yeah, I've eaten there too, and I love them too.
Yeah, it's so good. But still, I feel stylistically like even that place compared to Franklin's is like night and day. Completely different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they really are. Just in the way that they prepare it, the way they cook it, even the sides, like the flavor profiles, everything about them. And that's what I kind of like about barbecue. It's all kind of subjective. Everyone's got their own take on it. And as long as it tastes good, that's all that really matters.
Yeah, I mean, so you mentioned 6 places from your travels, and I'm sure all the barbecue was just a little bit different, but each one of those places had their own unique flair and like a special story of how they started. And barbecue is one of those things that really was birthed out of, foraging and early cooking and fire,
Yeah.
fire cookery, right? Like it's just a very much like we took the most undesirable cuts of meat. Like we've talked about this before, but that style of cooking was really birthed out of so many different things like hardship, necessity, poverty, and it's those shared experiences that makes it special, and then every region putting their own spin on it is just something really beautiful. I know like people argue about it, whose is better and which one is better, but like honestly, I've had all of them and they're really really good. I don't hate
I just want
I hate one or the other.
people who are just purists, like, oh no, it's all about Texas, or it's all about Carolina. Look, I don't care as long as it tastes good, and I'm not having to chew for hours just on one piece. I think it's stand up amazing.
Yeah,
that's like my adjective for everything. It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
But yeah,
okay, so there you have 4 major regional styles, right, of American barbecue. It's Kansas City, Memphis, Carolina, and Texas. But I want to ask you about some even like smaller microcosms of barbecue in other places. So obviously you went to St. Louis, which is famous for spare ribs, right? The spare ribs come from the stomach side of the rib cage, like right above the breastbone, but like they're below the back ribs. So that's kind of what we're talking about. They're a little bit fattier, but really, really tasty. And then the Alabama style barbecue has a white barbecue sauce. Are you aware of this?
I completely forgot about that until you mentioned it. I have had white barbecue sauce. Now, I've had some that were very savory, and then I've had some that were rather acidic.
Yeah, so it's definitely mayonnaise based, and I think every place will have different amounts of vinegar that they put in there. Most of the time it's apple cider vinegar. Sometimes there's brown mustard in there. I don't hate it, but it's closer to me to like coleslaw sauce, so it's not going to be my first choice, but definitely the couple of times in my life that I've had a chance to try it, like I was like, this is cool, experiencing something different,
I remember the first time I heard of a white barbecue sauce, I thought that was like the worst thing ever. And then I tasted it and I thought to myself, I stand corrected. I will shut up now. It wasn't bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's all fun and games until you actually go to try something. And, sometimes you might discover your new favorite thing. And sometimes you still don't like it, but at least you can say you tried it, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly what it is. That's how I got onto liver and onions. I thought it was the worst thing ever because if you think about what you're eating, it's beef liver. And then I tried it as a kid and I thought, this is one of my favorite meals ever. And to this day, I still love beef liver and onion.
I love liver and onions too. I think it's a whole other podcast. We got to talk about organ meat sometime.
Yeah, I think we can talk quite a bit about that one too.
So then you have Santa Maria style barbecue, which is specifically California and tri-tip. Like, what are your thoughts on this?
I think that, and it's been from my experience where the tri-tip is cooked like a brisket, where it's, kind of like not fall apart tendon, it's not the right word, but I treat tri-tip like a steak. So I'm not saying they're wrong, but I prefer my tri-tip to be medium at the most,
Yeah, it's the bottom part of the sirloin. So Santa Maria style barbecue is going to be the tri-tip rubbed in salt, pepper, and garlic. Super, super simple. But one thing I learned about it this week is that coastal oak or red oak, right, named for the region, it actually releases less smoke than other woods. That's why the flavor profile is so much different. So it's not a traditional barbecue. It's more like a grilled item.
Yeah.
And then in Kentucky, apparently they barbecue mutton. Were you aware of this?
No, but now I have to go to Kentucky now.
So they
I love
slow
that
smoke,
too.
right? They slow smoke mutton, and the sauce is Worcestershire based, so it kind of cuts into some of that gamey flavor. And then another barbecue dish there is burgoo, which I've had, but I don't think I've had the traditional kind. I've kind of had like a play on it with beef, but burgoo
Okay.
is a stew that has mutton and other roasted meats in it. So if you've ever been like on the East Coast ish or kind of, northern but deep south, they have Brunswick stew, and I believe they're a little bit similar.
I've never had that before, but now I'm gonna have to try it.
You have to try all the things, Steve.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I need to take more trips. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's funny because I think mutton is such a weird word, but then I think about what it is, and I love the gaminess, and I love lamb and goat and all that stuff. So I'm like, oh yeah, I love it. I got to try it.
I love it.
More as a
100%.
supplement.
I have never thought to put it on a smoker, but I kind of want to now. So
Oh,
I've
yeah.
also never been to Kentucky. So now I have two things that I need to try once I get to go there.
Yeah, same here. I guess I got to go to Alabama too and have like
Besides
their
the
actual,
bourbon, obviously.
authentic white barbecue sauce.
Yeah. Well, we have some listeners from Alabama. So, hey guys, I really want you to weigh in on this. Like, you've got to let us know, where is it at? Is it any good? Do you like it? And that goes for everybody too. Like, tell us, interact with us at the Food for Thoughtcast Facebook page. Let us know if you've ever been to any of these places. I'll post a link to all the places that Steve mentioned. Let us know what barbecue looks like to you. What did you grow up with? What are your favorites? And what style do you prefer? And yes, please weigh in on Alabama. And if anybody's ever been to Kentucky and had this smoked mutton, we really want to hear about it.
Yeah, I'd be all for it. Go check it out. Try new stuff. Who wouldn't want to do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Life's too short. You got to go try all the things, even the Memphis barbecue spaghetti, right?
Yeah, I'll totally try that. And what's out of everything that we talked about, the biggest takeaway for everyone listening at home is, if you're making burgers, you're not having a barbecue. I can't get over that.
It's a cookout. You're just grilling. It's not barbecuing.
No, you're gonna have hot dogs and hamburgers. We're barbecuing. No, you're not.
No, you're not. No,
just
you're
don't
not.
talk to me anymore.
You're just playing around. You're just poking the bear. You cannot call it barbecue. Amen, brother.
You're disappointing the barbecue gods. You're gonna get paid back, and not in a good way for that.
Your next
Whatever
brisket's
that
not going to
means,
have
you
a
take it
good
as
smoke
it
ring.
is.
It's the
I know,
barbecue
right?
karma gods. They're coming for you.
Yeah.
What do you
I don't
recommend?
know what that entails, but I would never want to find out.
What do you
my Hispanic ancestors and my Texan ancestors and all my friends are going to be like, dude, how do you call yourself chef and you're calling burgers barbecue? No.
Absolutely not. What would you tell somebody who was going to buy a smoker for the first time? What are your recommendations?
I really am not a big I always go for like the traditional stuff. I do have an electric smoker. I do have like a grill with like the smoke box and stuff like that. For me, that takes a little bit longer and a little bit more dedication. The pellet grills are always good. The Traegers, like, that's the big thing right now, and people swear by them.
Right.
So I will not knock on it, but I mean, you can never go wrong with just like a grill like a grill with a smoke box and plenty of time. That's what you need.
Yeah, and I want to speak to that just a little bit, right? Like us as chefs, when we're looking for a piece of equipment, we are not looking for bells and whistles. And that's a lot of the ways they're going to get you coming in the door, and they're going to get your money. But really, we're trained to know how to do things very simply. I never forget this time, and I think it was my first job out of culinary school, where they asked me if I knew how to make a hollandaise, and somebody proceeded to put the butter in the microwave, and they did a blender, and it blew my mind, because we learned like the old fashioned way, right? Double boiler, stainless steel bowl, right? Like clarified butter over a water bath. And you learn it the simplest way so that you can also learn it the faster way so that you have like the knowledge behind it, right? But when we're going to buy stuff for our own kitchens and our own homes, we're probably going to look for the most simple. Do you think that's true?
Oh yeah, totally. That's why I say like I totally cheat and have the electric smoker. Because I mean, when you really think about barbecue, like you think of all these award-winning places, they have like the rotisserie smokers. I don't have the space for it. I don't have the budget for it. So you
don't have a 16-foot trailer in your backyard, right?
No, fresh out, you know? So,
yeah.
But I mean, again, people swear up and down by the Traegers and the wood pellets and all that kind of stuff. And that's cool. You know, I've never done that. I just use my electric smoker and things come out really good that way. I take a little bit longer, but it gives me a little more time for drinking, and it gives me a little more time to like hang out. But when it's done, it's on point.
Well, and I think for a home cook too, like there's really no shame in using an electric smoker. It's just applying science to the same process, because in reality, unless you're running a barbecue restaurant, unless you're like a pit master, you don't have all day to tend to that stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
agreed.
Yeah, 100%. Sometimes you just have to do what makes sense for your situation, and there's no shame in it.
Yeah, no, none at all. Again, if you can make it taste good and it's tender, yeah, you're on point. You know what you're doing. Yeah, barbecue's awesome. You know, like I don't eat it all the time, but when I do, I cherish it, you know, because it just makes me happy because someone took the time to really spend making sure that whatever piece of meat they're cooking is perfect. It tastes good. It's juicy. And not only that, if it puts a smile on their face, it sure will put a smile on my face. And I'm going to be talking about it for a long time.
100% agree. I think barbecue is definitely a labor of love and very, very much so food for thought. Thanks for coming on, Steve. It was great to have you.
Of course. Always good.
Have a good one.
You too.
All right. Bye. That's a wrap for today. Until the next episode of the Food for Thoughtcast, make good food, eat good food, share it, and be kind to one another.
Thanks so much for listening today. You are part of what makes us special, and we are so glad you joined us. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. Just like food, delicious podcasts are better when you share them with others. Come back for seconds wherever podcasts are served, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Food for Thoughtcast.
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at the Food for Thoughtcast or at www.foodforthoughtcast.com, where you can link to all podcast players, or you can send us an email at foodforthoughtcmc@gmail.com.